All right, great. So welcome everyone. Thanks for tuning in. Uh, this is actually a re-recording of the session held earlier today on Sunday. When trying to get the recording from the Zoom program, something corrupted with the audio, probably something I did, and it's not working. And so I just figured the easiest thing to do would re-record from scratch. We had a bit of discussion and questions in that earlier session, and we settled on a couple of things, which I'll share with you. But because we did all that, this should be a lot quicker for you guys, which is good. But obviously, I don't want this to be a one-way conversation. Obviously, your guys' inputs and comments are super valuable. So if anything comes up, any questions or suggestions, room for improvement, or any criticisms, please email me, call me or text me. Your opinions, again, are super valuable, and a lot of you guys have a lot more experience doing this than I do. So without further ado, and sorry, don't want to ramble too much, but before I start, I'm Cyan, one of the MS4s, and I'm super excited to be working with you guys this year. Great, so welcome again. Thanks so much for your interest in helping TA this year. As I said, the interest this year was unprecedented. Over 35 people. In the past, it was around 15 to 20 at the max. And as you may or may not know, just because of dwindling interest with the in-person sessions in the last year or so, the TA session was put on a brief intermission. But given all the uncertainty this year, and given that Zoom is kind of a permanent fixture in a lot of medical education, for better, for worse, she and a lot of other people are interested in reinstating the TA program. So hopefully the student TA will be higher, student turnout will be higher, and having a commensurate number of TAs will accommodate that bigger demand. Sorry about that. Great. So in terms of the structure, to be frank, a lot of this stuff isn't novel, isn't stuff that I've come up with, but information that I've gotten from talking to TAs from previous years. I think their methods and everything are very tried and true, seem to work in person and seem to work for Zoom. And I think we can co-opt this structure. After discussion with the session earlier this morning, I think this seems like the way we'll try to adopt it this year, or we will adopt it. But again, if there's anything that you'd like to change, any room for improvement that you guys see, please email me, and I'd love to open up that avenue of conversation. So there are three main facets. Starting off, the TAs hold weekly sessions, and they'll include the main bulk of the session will be a 2-hour review of kind of the difficult concepts presented during that week. There'll be weekly reviews, and this will be in the form of a PowerPoint presentation put together by the TAs in those module groups that we'll talk about more. And these PowerPoints will be based on the TA's personal experiences with being a physio student as a M1, taking the second year pathophys courses, or just their experiences on the wards. It's like a 3rd and 4th year. Occasionally, Dr. Leesman will reach out to TAs or me, and then I'd just pass them any questions on to you. But she'd reach out with particular questions that she'd reached out, that she had gotten during the week. Anecdotally speaking, and I think a lot of people who have been course representatives for this class can attest, I think a lot of those questions end up coming near the end during renal and PK, which I'll talk about, which I can talk about later. But this could happen for any course, any of the modules, and this is a bit of the more dynamic aspect of the TA sessions, but that could come up, so it's something to be mindful of. And if those topics do come up, the job would just be to incorporate those and address those on the PowerPoint presentations. And finally, at the end, there'd be time for a Q&A. Great time for students, MS1s, to ask questions regarding the quizzes, class material, or anything in a collegial, non-judgmental atmosphere. Next part was the TA written questions. There's a decent question bank right now, But obviously you can always add to them, and I encourage it. There's a bunch of resources at the end with a bunch of questions. So I don't think it's as daunting of a task as it sounds. We'll talk more about that, but there's a good source of questions already. And these would be answered by the students before, after, or during. We'll again talk about more. I know I'm saying that a lot, but a lot of this is just foreshadowing. And just something to note, these questions are often skewed towards topics that are in published sources, like STEP material, board exam review material, stuff that we're reading, and may not 100% align with the class material, but I think people are just grateful for the opportunity for more practice and more thinking along the lines, that more kind of active learning. And so having a question bank, I think, is really valuable, something that's a good part of this program. And finally, the PowerPoint sessions from the TA, the PowerPoint presentations from the TA sessions would be released. And I'm guilty of this, but a lot of students wouldn't attend the live sessions because these PowerPoints would be released. But I think that's kind of more the reason to make these PowerPoints as polished as possible. A lot of people use these as their primary, secondary study source. And so coming up with a good product to disseminate to the students is just going to be really valuable and meaningful for them. Obviously, we'll try to keep the turnout high. We don't want you guys presenting to an empty classroom. But yeah, those are the three main facets of the program so far. And again, there's a lot of creativity and a lot of autonomy that the groups, that each of these module groups have. And so these are just kind of the main standardized structure that you can stick to. But once you're discussing with your team about the actual structure of your presentations, that's where you have a lot of creative latitude. So please don't feel restricted in any way. And speaking of which, kind of the responsibilities of each module team going on. Each team, I've assigned roughly 6 to 8 people, depending on the module, with I think pharmacokinetics having the least amount of people. And in the past, this was actually 3 to 5. And so there's a couple more students, and I think this is just gonna be way more helpful for you guys in terms of flexibility, evenly divvying up the resources, the responsibilities. And I just think it's gonna be easier for everybody, for you guys and the students and the MS1s. And going on, each group was roughly split into 2 responsibilities. The first one was that one student from each group, usually an upperclassman, but it totally doesn't have to be, because I don't think anything with this first responsibility necessitates that anyone being an upperclassman. I think anyone can do it. But they were tasked with taking, the old set of PowerPoints, which I'll show you guys, and questions, and then revamping them to match their own experiences. Again, with the MS2s, it could be the experience of studying for the boards, or MS3s and MS4s, kind of like the clinical experiences, but anything really. And then they'd send these to Dr. Leisman, who would kind of vet them. And after she'd give her okay and approval, this first group of students would send this content to Megan Sacco or Kira Schmidt. That's still TBD. I'll let you guys know closer to the class date. And then they would upload them to Blackboard. If you guys don't want to deal with all the rigmarole of these middlemen and having everybody, you guys can email me, but sometimes just having direct pipeline might be easier. So totally what you guys want. As I said here, this year, more students can be involved in content generation just because we have so much more interest. And I think that's beneficial because might be less stressful to have more people making slides, making new questions, and just having an extra set of eyes and perspectives and proofreading ability, frankly, is really nice. And again, just throwing this out there, I know everyone's schedules are so different in terms of clerkship, but third years, I know that M3 can be a very inflexible year, especially depending on the clerkship you're on, like surgery, OB, even medicine sometimes, and totally get that. if you know you're not going to be available for that TA session, then maybe it's a good idea to be a content generator and be more active in this first group. But again, if you know you're on elective vacation or maybe a less burdensome rotation, then by all means go for presentations. And that's a nice segue into the next group, the remaining TAs. They would study the PowerPoint and questions made by their colleagues above and present them. And for 2-week modules, we have enough students that you could probably break it up. So everybody only likes to present 1 week. And again, the way that you break it up is totally up to your guys' discretion. And probably the most important thing, I have it here, but I think it's important for every single aspect of this program is just to plan ahead. I think, I mean, obviously there's so many more important things in life than physiology TA session. I totally get it. And life gets in the way. And the last thing I want is for this to detract from important responsibilities in your personal life. And so I think the best way to kind of deal with those things is to be communicative with your team and me, but more importantly, your team. Let them know if you can't make things ahead of time, and that just makes things much more fair for your teammates and also for like the M1s. We want the M1s to have a good experience as well, and if people can't make their responsibilities, it's completely fine, but just let people know beforehand so they can plan. We can all plan accordingly, and everyone can work together. So the first question that we kind of discussed in the earlier session was, when should the TA sessions be held? And so we did a bit of discussion, and I know originally we're thinking about the weekend, but ultimately we decided on Thursday evenings at 6 to 8. It could be like 7 to 9 if you really want it, or 5 to 7, but 2-hour sessions on Thursday evening. And the rationale for that is just that these quizzes, there's weekly quiz and exams, and they open up on Fridays. And a lot of students, you know, really like to take the quizzes right when they open up or on that first day. And so just to accommodate those students and to be fair for everybody, we decided that Thursday evening would be a good time. Obviously, some clerkships, we understand, go late. So that's just a bit of planning. 6 to 8 is hopefully a late time. So a lot of clerkships will be off for the M3s, but again, something to be mindful of, and we think that's a great date. But again, if you have any comments, if a lot of people feel strongly against that, please let me know, and I'll throw it out to everyone. Next thing is kind of something that I discussed. It's not a standardized thing for everyone, but it's just kind of a question to be thinking about when you guys are meeting and deciding on how to present. It's how you guys should use Zoom. This is the first year we're using Zoom for physiology. I know a couple of other classes like micro have used in the past. I think one student pointed that out. And so I honestly think that Zoom is an exciting resource. There's a lot that we miss out, but I think there are a lot of features that we can harness to maximum benefit. And because of the platform, there's a couple of different ways that you guys can run sessions. And again, no uniform way, just depending on how your group wants to do it. I think the more traditional way is to have one big group and have multiple presenters, kind of like this, but with more like panelists speaking. It's a good way to do it. There could be a breakout room. And then in that breakout room, there would be multiple TAs, or multiple TAs would be in multiple breakout rooms, and they'd run concurrently, and people would just rotate through. That might be good for more interactive sessions if you choose to ask more questions. And then finally, a webinar with like polling and Q&A. That doesn't seem so popular just because it's not as interactive. But again, that variety is there for you guys. Again, just going back to the last slide, in terms of like, should questions be incorporated into PowerPoints? In the past, the typical structure of the course would be that TAs would present slides and then answer questions at the end. And that would be more in line with this kind of first presenting method. But some TAs that I queried said that it might be a better idea to intersperse questions into the PowerPoints. That's great, and I think it encourages a lot of engagement and conversation, discussion, but it does tend to take up a bit of time. And I think a lot of people, especially if they have exam or quiz coming up, they really want to have that high yield, jam-packed like info session, and so might test somebody's patience. So that's a balance that you have to be mindful of. I think having some questions is good, but yeah, just something to think about. And yeah, no right or wrong answer. And finally, sometimes there's just too much material. I think this is most salient in the GI endo repro when there's just a ton of different courses, a ton of different material, all brand new. And sometimes you just can't cover it all. And I think the way that students in the past tackled and addressed this issue was that they would poll students at the beginning on what they want to focus on, and they just directed their energy there. And obviously this doesn't have to be restricted to that module, like anybody can use it. But I think this is just a way to kind of negotiate that problem when you're making slides and you realize there's a ton of material and you can't present it all when you're practicing your presentation. It's just might be nice to poll the students. Great. And so next is just the lecture slides for this year. Obviously, I don't expect you guys to read through all the slides, or not I, but like nobody expects you to read through all the slides. That's basically like studying for physio again, and you guys have much more valuable things to do with your time. But sometimes when you're generating content, you might not be completely 100% sure if what you're writing or what you're sharing completely aligns with the class material. So it's really nice to have these lecture slides available to just get a pulse on what the class is feeling. And I can open them up. Sorry, I have to move my computer a bit, but great. So, and I actually don't think I'm sharing it with you. 1 second. Pretty bad at Zoom. Great. So you guys should be seeing the Blackboard screen now. It just has all of the lecture slides, not completely set in stone, but pretty concrete for now. And again, like if you aren't sure about something, you can open up any of these. You have the lectures, very easy to access. You guys will get access to this Blackboard. You see it says Physiology Spring 2020. I submitted everyone's names to the coordinators and the administrators of the course. So hopefully in the next following days, you guys will get access to these slides, all the TA materials here, which we'll discuss, and previous recordings. I can get the previous TA recordings if you guys wish, just to see how it was run in the past in person. Might be overkill, but if you guys want it, I can totally try to pull them from some online repository somewhere. But that's all there. And then I actually don't think I was sharing a screen with you guys for the last couple of seconds, but or sharing the right screen. I'm just realizing that, but let me, great. So this is the slide that I was, these are the slides and the Blackboard pages that I was looking at. And so it's just here. You guys are very familiar with Blackboard, so sorry about that. But just going back to the PowerPoint, and we'll go back on Blackboard. So in case you missed anything, I'll point it out. The next couple slides are just kind of the dates for all of the modules really quickly. So as you may or may not know, there's quizzes and exams every single week of physio. And so after you do your presentation, people might ask questions. And so here are the dates. And on each of these, I have the previous year's material. So if you click this slide, it'll actually open up to a TA material window, which I'll actually show you guys here on Zoom. Okay, so I should be screen sharing this stuff. So these are all of the previous year's TA material. So once you get access, you can just open. You see they have the nice TA review slides, nice slide deck, nice set of questions dating back to 2015, 2016, 2018, and then even 2017. So a good bank of questions and a nice maybe workflow. If you guys want to do it this way, is just to look at these to get a scaffold or template and then update them with stuff that you think could be improved on, or your own experiences, or just stuff that you find online that's helpful. Don't have to reinvent the wheel, but if you make it polished, I think people will definitely appreciate that. And then let's just go back to the PowerPoint. Great. So it's going to be the same for the remaining slides. Obviously, GI, Endo, Repro have more material. This says Endo, but it should go to Repro. And the first exam is going to be on March 5th. So it's important to know that because people might be a bit, tensions might be running a little higher during that week. March 12th they'll be responsible for that week. Renal, March 19th. Also match day, also my birthday. Pharmacokinetics is on March 26th. And this is right before the final exam. And I think a lot of people tend to think that a lot of people blow off PK. I did, which I really shouldn't have. I think it screwed me on the final. I don't remember now, but definitely didn't devote as much time as I should have. But I think if you guys can make this in a concise, high yield PowerPoint, it'd be really helpful to a lot of people because it's pretty out of left field compared to the rest of the courses, rest of the modules, and a lot of like the mathy gross stuff is kind of arcane, like esoteric. And so I think people just really appreciate if this is well done, even though it's only like 3 or 4 lectures. So that's the last block. And finally, just resources. First is Costanzo and is it Costanzo or Constanzo? Yeah, Costanzo, I think, in BRS Physiology, names that you're probably really familiar with. I found them, may have been legally, may have been illegally. I found very recent copies of them and I uploaded them to a Google Drive, which I'll share with everybody. And so I think it'd be prudent, definitely not necessary, but prudent to, it'd be a good idea to read just the chapter that you're responsible for, that your module group is responsible for, just as a refresher. And at the end of each of the Costanzo chapters in the BRS Physio book, BRS Physio is, in case you don't know, is kind of like a companion guide to Costanzo. It's like a mini version of it. There's questions, so you can pull those questions if you wish. And I think it's just a really quick way to get well-versed in the subject before you present. Maybe like a month ahead. If you just read a chapter, it should take like an hour or 2 at most. Probably longer for me, I'm a slow reader, but yeah. So that's there. Next is Lippincot's Illustrated Reviews Physiology. I know this isn't as popular, and I didn't use it as much, but I really think I perused through it when I was looking through resources, and I think there's a bunch of really great illustrations in it. Not so many questions, or maybe not any question at all, but I think you can pull some great diagrams that would be helpful, and that's there. It's through Levy Library. I'm not going to open up now, but it's just because it's probably going to crash my computer. But the Levy Library is open. Like, I mean, you guys have access to the catalog. We all do through a Sinai Wi-Fi or remote access login. If you guys have issues, just reach out to me. Next is the Katsung Pharmacology Board Exam Review. This is more for pharm questions. It actually does have a section on pharmacokinetics with like those equations and maybe Michaelis-Menten stuff. I don't actually know if Michaelis-Menten, yeah, I think, yeah, Michaelis-Menten was covered in physio, and so that stuff is there. Next, I'm actually going to open up really quickly. 1 second. Sorry about that. I'm using a Surface, so everything's a bit harder to use. And then let me share. Great. So Oh, it's too fast. This is Access Medicine. It's a McGraw-Hill Medical subscription-based service, and we have access again through Sinai. So if you want to log on, you got to go through Sinai Wi-Fi or just remote login, which I can show you how to do if you don't know how to do. And it has a bunch of questions, Vanders, whatever this is, pulmonary, GI, if you want. But the most important, or the thing that I thought was the coolest was this Ganon. I love the name, but the books that they use have a lot of questions associated with them. So if I just open up one of these, for example, you see that they're broken down, like endo, repro, cardiovascular, pulm, and the sequestration of the questions align pretty well with how the class is taught. So I think you can just make question banks based off of this by just putting in numbers, blasting through questions, getting them all wrong, and pulling the questions and explanations. I think it'd be a good and easy way to get questions if you find ones that aren't repeats. But I don't see this used as much. And so this is out here for you guys to use. Great. And next is kind of the question banks that we're unfortunately more familiar with, like Amboss, UWorld, RX Kaplan, Boards and Beyond. If you guys have access, these are source of questions. I think they're good. And I think there's value in presenting like step style questions to first years. It's like valuable in the long term because they're gonna have to take it, although it's gonna be pass fail for them, but it's good. But what we have to be cognizant of is that these TA sessions aren't step prep, they're for the first year medical physiology class. And unfortunately, for better or for worse, those questions are worded a bit differently from step questions. So I think you just have to be careful from making things too step focused or too not step focused. I think it's good to have a balance. I definitely think people get excited when they get the more clinical style questions, but we have to prepare them well for doing as good as they are, as well as they can in the exam. And so finding that balance is useful. And last thing is just poll everywhere. I talked about polling people before the presentations in terms of finding a direction and trajectory of your talks, but you can also use them to get participant engagement and ask questions to the class or to the people in attendance. And so there's a lot of ways you can use poll everywhere. And yeah, I think that's, trying to think of anything else I want to share with you guys. I know this is like a whirlwind of things that I've like presented in the last like 20 or 30 minutes. And I know it's all moved super quick. You guys really only signed up for this at the beginning of the week, and now I'm presenting with all these responsibilities. But with all these people, I really want to try to get across that it really should not be super time consuming commitment, especially because I think everybody's hopefully going to start working on things earlier. And so with enough heads up beforehand, enough like working in a more relaxed environment this month, it should be just like a week-long commitment once the course starts. And obviously with some people, especially towards the end, like renal and pharmacokinetics, you guys have even more time to present, to prepare, because it's in like a couple months from now. So no stress. And then obviously anything comes up at all, it doesn't even have to be related to TAing, like life stuff, questions regarding anything, please reach out to me. You guys have my email, you guys have my number, please call me, text me, email me. Again, I said at the beginning, but I'm super available, especially for stuff like this. I know things come up, so please, I'm pretty chill. So like, please reach out to me. And I guess last thing is just to not talk your ear off, but the last thing is just next steps. I'll probably email you guys, and a lot of you guys who are watching this recording probably received this email because I'm attaching this recording to that email. But that email is the next steps. And so I'll probably reach out to groups individually and uh, like reach out to groups, keep them updated. I promise I'm not that much of a micromanager unless your group wants me to be, but like that's not really in my nature. I trust everybody to do a better job than I can. And so next steps is I'd email you guys, and within this month, if you choose, especially if you're kind of on the earlier side of the presentations, you guys work in kind of a more laid back, relaxed atmosphere, have this month to prepare, and then hash out roles. And then towards the beginning of the course, like in February 8th, when we're getting, a week before, I just, circle back and check in with you guys and kind of get a pulse on what everyone's up to. But again, no stress. If anything comes up again, please message me. And yeah, I know things are getting really weird out there, so please stay safe, and hope you guys have a great week or weekend, depending on when you're listening to this. Thanks so much.